Thank you everyone for joining us today for another awesome episode of Bioenergetic Beats. I'm Heather Gray, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner. And this episode is brought to you by NIKKI, Unleash the Wellness Within. It's a non-invasive, easily affordable, and highly effective approach to optimize wellness. It's a wearable device that puts frequency-based better life in your hands and on your wrist. And today we've got an awesome conversation with a very interesting gentleman. We're going to be diving deep into EMFs and why should we care, and how does the way we treat EMFs with our device different than other ones out there on the market? And again, why should we care? So let's everyone give a warm welcome to Mr. Steve King here.
Hello.
Hey, would love to find out, you are actually part of the Freemedica team. I'd love to learn a little bit more about you. How did you get involved in Freemedica, and how did you get involved talking about frequencies and EMFs and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so I've been into biohacking since I was a kid. Basically, I tried to build my own TDCS machine, like a brain hacking machine, when I was 12. It didn't really work, but that's how long I've been interested in this stuff. I studied.
Your brain, was there any sort of weird side effects from your experiment?
Yeah, I got some burns on my forehead. I didn't know enough about electronics back then. I do now, but
That's kind of awesome.
yeah, I mean, it's been kind of a lifelong interest. I studied engineering in school, electromechanical control systems, and then shifting into environmental engineering with a focus on the control systems for water treatment systems, building energy efficiency, all sorts of stuff. But I always had that biomedical, biotech, biohacking interest in the kind of in the back of my mind. I got working with a couple of other companies, and we get into some interesting biohacking technology. And it was my connection through that how I actually met Steven. And then once I left that other company, I was able to join Waveforce Freemedica and start working on this amazing technology. So it's been a bit of a circuitous route, but I got where I needed to be.
That's awesome. And isn't it always like, it's never a straight shot where we end up? Like,
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
still laugh how I ended up here. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't ask to go work for other people, but once I had Steven on my podcast, I was like, I've got to be a part of this.
Yep. Much the same story with me. Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's dive in a little deeper. Like, let's start off with the first question. What are EMFs?
Yeah. Okay. So EMFs, electromagnetic fields, they're invisible waves of energy. So if you imagine kind of like you drop a stone in a pond, you get little ripples on the surface. It's like that, except that there's two of them that are perpendicular. So if you imagine it's kind of like lines of latitude and longitude on the Earth, they kind of ripple out, but at 90 degrees to each other. And when they intersect things, like for example, a magnetic field intersects a wire, that induces a current. And vice versa, you put an electric field across a wire, it makes a magnetic field. That's how motors and generators work.
Gotcha. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Basically, anytime you've got electrical devices, they emit these fields constantly. And normally that's not really a problem, except that sometimes it is, because I mentioned conductive wires. Well, our bodies are conductive as well. And this is where some of the problem comes in.
So there's difference between natural EMFs and man-made EMFs. And I know that's part of the problem
Yes.
that we have with a lot of these devices and a lot of this technology out there. So can you go a little bit into that?
Absolutely, yeah. So for the vast majority of the history of the Earth, there was only natural EMFs. For example, there's an EMF constantly on the Earth called the Schumann resonance, and it's 7.83 hertz, and this is caused by basically the sum total of all of the electric fields of all the lightning strikes at any point in time, bouncing between the surface of the Earth and part of the atmosphere called the ionosphere, and it kind of averages out to this single resonance frequency, which interestingly enough corresponds to one of our own brain states called the alpha state. And we were just bathed in this for the vast majority of human history. And it's only been in the past century and a bit that we've had anything else. And now all these other fields are kind of drowning it out. Like you got your power lines, you've got your computer, microwave oven, like all these different devices, just Wi-Fi, 5G, all that stuff.
That's crazy. And that was explained beautifully. Like, I don't think I've ever heard that tied together in such an eloquent way. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I know that one of the difference between natural EMFs and non-natural EMFs is that natural EMFs, I'm going to get it confused. Hopefully you can help me out. One of them goes one way, right? And then the other one is more dissipated. Right, so it's the natural ones that are more dissipated, kind of like
because they're all around us.
The ripples in the pond, where unnatural EMFs or the man-made ones with our devices, they're very single focused, right? So they're kind of like bombarding us.
It's like the difference between ambient sunlight and a spotlight from over here. Like one is very directional. That may not be like as much contributing to some of the issues as other things, but there's definitely a difference. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
So then that would be is there a difference between good EMFs and bad EMFs? So you were just saying that the Schumann resonance,
that's a good EMF.
It's the same as the alpha. And we all know that manifestation, amazing things happen when we can reach that alpha. So obviously there is good and bad EMFs.
Yes, yeah, and even medically, that there's definitely good EMFs. Like for example, pulsed EMF treatment is been used for several decades now for helping bones to heal better, to help skin heal better. There's other different, of course, like our frequency technology. That's examples of good frequencies, good EMFs that we're putting in. And then there's bad EMFs, which come across from like badly designed power circuits, improperly shielded devices, being too close to power lines, things like that.
Smart devices and the smart homes, and now we've got
meters and
cars. Like, it's crazy and what it's doing to people's health. So you were saying just in the last century, we didn't have all these man-made type EMFs. There's just been so much too, like, tied together with how much our diet has changed in the last century too. So it's
so much has changed.
We have so many health issues these days between the man-made EMFs and then the improper diet. So what can we do to kind of help protect ourselves from some of these harmful EMFs?
We should look at how it affects people. So for example, some people, it affects them far more than others. I am rather hypersensitive to it. Not during the day so much, but if I've got like Wi-Fi on or a device on at night, I just get a terrible sleep. I've got my Aura ring here and I'm tracking my sleep for years. There is a noticeable difference in my sleep quality, whereas my wife, doesn't affect her at all. She can leave her phone on next to her head all night, doesn't affect her. It affects me, but not her. So there's different approaches to how you would mitigate it depending on how it's affecting you. So in that example, what I do is we turn off Wi-Fi at night. We turn off any wireless devices, phones, iPad, whatever else. We generally don't sleep with even a fan on, unless it's just painfully hot. Just again mitigate the fields coming off of that. We don't have any other devices charging in our bedroom, things like that. So those are a few things you can do. It's kind of like getting some separation from the causative devices, I guess.
Absolutely. I found that with a lot of the lab testing that I do for folks, there's definitely a genetic component to those of us that actually makes us more susceptible, more sensitive to EMFs than others, so, and that's part of the reason why you see this kind of clustering together with people with chronic illness that also have issues with EMFs, but they're also going to be the ones that have issues with mold and are more susceptible to Lyme because they just have these genetics that kind of set themselves up for this storm, right? So lucky us.
Indeed.
We're going to go to a quick commercial break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
There's a new word for wellness, NIKKI. NIKKI, the bioenergetic wearable designed to help you feel better and perform better. Other wearables just track how you're doing. NIKKI is about helping you do better. NIKKI takes bioenergetic frequency science to a new level and onto your wrist. NIKKI technology carries frequencies into the body to organize and optimize cellular network. the trillions of cells that communicate by light and frequencies to keep us alive and feeling our best. Physical and mental trauma can upset cellular communication, and NIKKI is designed to help restore it. Touch the NIKKI screen to choose the frequency you want for what you want to do and how you want to feel. Low energy? Touch energy for a boost. Stressed out? Stress and anxiety is to calm you down. Aches and pains? Choose NIKKI Pain. NIKKI has frequency sets intended to fight allergies, strengthen immunity, and keep viruses and bacteria at bay. If you're going on a trip and want to arrive fresh and ready to enjoy your vacation, touch travel. And if you want to wake up ready to go, NIKKI Nighttime is for overcoming daytime trauma while you sleep. Every NIKKI comes loaded with a full inventory of frequency set, including pain, energy, travel, immune, stress and anxiety, viruses and bacteria, allergies, insomnia, daytime bundles, nighttime bundles. NIKKI puts a personal wellness center in your hands and on your wrist. Be better. Do better. We are NIKKI.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second half of Bioenergetics Beat. Today, we're diving deep into EMFs with Mr. Steve King, who's with us here on the Free Medica team. And we've talked about the difference between natural EMFs and man-made EMFs and kind of some of the ways that we could do to mitigate it. I was going to go a little further because I love how you talked about shutting your Wi-Fi off at night. You know, the first person I ever heard about doing that was from Dr. Klinghardt, like 10 years ago when I was in my Lyme journey, talking about how these Wi-Fi's at night kind of supercharge these bugs. And if you're really wanting to get better, to shut your Wi-Fi off at night. So I struggle, like when I go to a bed, you know, a Airbnb or a hotel or something I don't have like that control where I can shut it off. Because I definitely notice a difference in my sleep, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I loved it when you talked about moving electronic devices out of the room, right? If you've got to put your phone in your room, make sure it's on airplane mode, like all these things that we can do to kind of help mitigate, because there's a lot of areas in our life that we don't have control over, right?
One other thing that I wanted to mention about that is I'm not a big fan of coil spring mattresses. And not just because they're, you know, like one person moves, the other person kind of bounces too. They can act like antennas. Like if you've got strong EMF sources, your bed's gonna be radiating it back out. And I don't like that. Like I prefer latex or memory foam or almost anything other than coil spring. But I don't have a lot of EMF point sources anywhere close to my bedroom, so it actually has not been an issue for us. But if people have these point sources nearby, that's definitely a concern, I would say.
Absolutely. And I usually try to stay away from the memory foam because of the off-gassing on those. I mean, those are even actually like not allowed in certain, you know, countries in the United States because of just how toxic the off-gassing can be. So watch out with the memory foam. But no, that was a great, what about like the bed frames itself? Because I was noticing that my bed frame was actually metal. And so I ended up ditching it. And right now my mattress is just on the floor. Like what's a good non-conductor of electricity as a bed frame? What do you use?
Wood is good.
It is good.
I've got a wooden bed frame, so that's
nice. Yeah, I've been meaning to replace that, but yeah, I was noticing bad nights again, and I was looking at that metal frame going
again. Yeah.
Huh, I wonder. So good.
Antenna.
Right? I don't need that. What are some of the benefits that we can actually use EMFs for? Like we kind of got into the Schumann resonance. We just tapped into our device. Can we go deeper into, you know, PMFs? Like you were just, let's dive deeper into good things that the right kind of EMFs can do for us.
So there's this concept called a biological window, where within that window, EMFs affect us. Outside of it, they generally don't. Like there are certain frequencies that kind of mimic what our bodies are already doing, and those are able to be used for healing. Like you mentioned PEMF. One of the earliest use cases of that was for helping bones to heal better. And so our bones are basically crystalline, like there's a piezoelectric effect with our bones. And by applying certain EMFs at certain frequencies to bones, we can actually speed up the healing. So that's a really good example of a beneficial effect. There's other effects people can use for reducing inflammation, accelerating healing, stuff like that. Again, EMFs. And then the frequencies that we use, that's a different kind. Because you have to look at, there's when people talk about frequency, they could mean two different things. So they could mean the wavelength, or they could mean the pulse modulation. So, for example, the wavelength of light, that determines the color. And also in other cases, whether it's visible, whether it's infrared or ultraviolet, whereas pulse modulation is actually like blinking, like the wavelength doesn't change, but the amplitude changes. Yeah, there's different frequencies that we can use with that, different EMFs that we can use for beneficial effects. We talked about the Schumann resonance as being in alignment with the alpha brainwaves. There's other technology. I mentioned a TDCS, transcranial direct current stimulation. That was my brain zapper. That's used to help synchronize brainwaves to an external signal or frequency. That's used for helping to calm people down, even in helping to sleep. People use it for improving focus, things like that. So those are all examples of EMFs applied in a very particular way to achieve a beneficial effect.
Is that the same thing as neurofeedback?
Generally, no. I mean, it could be. Neurofeedback, for example, our brains don't have the ability to perceive themselves, so to speak. So neurofeedback, we put sensors on our heads, and that allows us to measure brain activity, electrical activity in the brain, and then give some sort of a feedback response. Maybe it's a visualization on a screen, maybe it's an audio tone or music in your ear, and then you can adapt yourself. Generally, that's not putting EMFs back in, because I would basically drown out the signal, because like the signals that the EEG is picking up very, very weak. So if you were to put a signal back in as a kind of a corrective thing, it would basically wash out the signal is measuring. So you could do that. You just have to flip back and forth. But I don't know of anyone doing that. So
and so what was the machine that you were working with trying to accomplish?
So the TDCS machine,
Yeah.
that was just putting a signal in. I was trying to work on either sleep induction or relaxation. There was no feedback mechanism. It was just, I press a button and it injects a signal, and that entrains my brain waves to make me fall asleep. Actually, it was based on something I saw in Back to the Future Part 2, I believe, that the sleep inducing device. I was trying to build one of those.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes,
that actually sounds a lot like, right, this little gadget here. Where
yes, it's generations
there's
apart.
no feedback, right? We just press a button and it's delivering frequencies, and we
exactly
got a sleep frequency, so to help with that. So how incredible is that? So no, you're like a perfect fit for this company. It totally makes sense. You were doing that at the age of, what'd you say, 12?
12.
That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah, 30 years ago. Now I'm old.
I'm like, yeah, we won't go into that. I'm gonna leave that one alone. So yeah, that's actually a perfect segment. So how are our frequencies delivered, and how are we using EMFs, with the NIKKI type thing, and how is that benefiting people in their everyday life?
Yeah, so our frequencies are delivered with light, not I mean, which is still an EMF, but it's not what people think about. Yeah, there you go. Not what people typically think about with like pulsing magnetic fields or whatever. It is like, you got mine on there. I've got my wave 1 here, and
Nice.
I'm all geared up. There's different programs people can use, and the technology it's all delivering with light. So it avoids some of the downsides, I guess you could say, with how it interacts with cells. Do you want to go a little bit into like the science of how it affects on a cellular level?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. So I'll try not to get too geeky sciencey here, but just stop me if I am. So we are basically electrochemical machines. You may have heard reference to our cells as being like little batteries. And that's definitely true to a case. Like, for example, like the mitochondria, that's exactly what they are. They're batteries that charge, discharge, charge, discharge. And that's what powers us. The cells themselves are more like a more complicated electronic device. And they've got receptors on them, are kind of like antennae. That they've got a membrane which has an electrical potential across it. So basically the voltage is different on the inside versus the outside. And exposure to EMFs can really mess with that. It can disrupt the electrical potentials. It can mess with the signaling of a certain receptor, certain receptor points. And that's how cells communicate. That's how they regulate themselves. So the impacts of these EMFs, whether it's like high power, whether it's low power, like Bluetooth, it can cause negative effects on cells. Much of the research into are EMFs harmful? Are they not? Has been on SAR studies, and I've got a couple links I can share for the show notes, but that's looking at thermal effects. That's not looking at electropotential effects or cellular communications or ion channel disruptions, things like that. So our technology uses light instead of electric fields or magnetic fields or electrical impulses, things like that. And that fits a little bit better with how the cells function naturally. Are you familiar with the concept of biophotons?
I have. It's been fascinating because you can actually see pictures, right, of these of plants, and the difference between organic plants and non-organic plants, and all these cool little pictures of these, the light that these life beings are emitting, right, because of these biophotons. But yes, dive deeper into that.
Yeah. So one of my favorite quotes about this, again, showing off my nerd side here, is from Yoda from Star Wars. Luminous beings are we, not this crude flesh. And it's right. I mean, with a sensitive enough detector, you can actually record, you can actually see light coming off of our bodies, out of our cells. And that's part of how they communicate. So healthy cells, unhealthy cells, they react differently. There's different effects on these photon emissions depending on the health of the body. Did you ever, when you were a kid, did you ever play the game Telephone?
No,
Okay,
but
so
I've heard it.
okay, so the basic gist of that is you got a group of kids, and one person whispers a message to the next person, who then repeats it to the next person, and so on and so forth. And by the end of the line, the message is usually hilariously garbled. That's kind of how our cells work. The more coherent the emissions of these biophotons, the more coherent the message, and the more cohesive and coherent the functioning of the cells as a whole. As well, the cells as a whole, that's our body. So by using light instead of magnetic fields, for example, we're kind of overriding or providing like a stronger coherent signal to the cells, which helps reinforce and boost the signal that gets propagated out from cell to cell. And that's more in line with how the cells naturally function. So that's it's more readily accepted, if you want to say that.
It's beautiful. What are some of the health benefits that you've experienced personally since kind of using this type of technology?
Yeah, so probably the most dramatic example is last September. It was, yeah, almost a year ago. I just wrecked my knee. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but there was a very loud snapping, popping sound. And then I went over sideways in just blinding pain. I tore something, ripped. I don't know what exactly the full extent was, but I couldn't move. I couldn't walk. I couldn't bend my knee. And with running, I had ice on it, sure, and I had tensor bandage, whatever. But just running the pain program on my NIKKI and the anti-inflammatory program I've got on my Wave 1, I was up and walking again within 3 days. And that was September 15th or so. Yeah. So Halloween. So about 6 weeks later, I'd taken my daughter out trick-or-treating, and I saw out of the corner of my eye, I saw a deer walking down my street. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And well, our neighbor's dog saw it too. And she slipped away from her owner and just went tearing off after this deer. And so the two of them were tearing up down the street towards a fairly busy 4-lane road. I'm like, no, not on my watch. So I just took off running, and I was like sprinting down the street, and I caught the dog safely. So we're all good. But afterwards, I'm like, wait a minute, that was risky of me. I've been wearing a knee brace every day for 6 weeks so I could walk properly again. And I just first day not wearing it, and I'm running and chasing dogs and deer. So yeah, I was blown away by how quickly I got better from that. Because otherwise I was looking at surgery. I don't know if it was like what's the term I'm looking for?
Torn meniscus or ACL.
Yeah, ACL. Thank you. Yeah, because that I didn't go for an MRI or anything like that, but the clinic I did see say it was definitely something along those lines. But it recovered all by itself with no after effects, and the only thing I did was pain relief. I said ice and a tensor bandage on it for a few days, but that's all I did.
That's crazy. So the movie Back to the Future 2 inspired you to do the sleep stuff. So do you have sleep issues, and
Oh yeah.
how's the NIKKI help with that?
So yeah, I definitely have sleep issues. There was a time for almost a couple of years when I literally couldn't sleep without sleep supplements and sleeping pills. There was a product on the market called UDream, available here in Canada, and it worked amazing. Like I took one of those, and I was out like a light within 20 minutes. Best sleep I've ever had. Well, unfortunately, it got pulled off the market because there was contaminants in it that just happened to be pharmaceutical sleep drugs.
Oh no.
So I bought up all of the stock I could find. I cleared at Amazon. I cleared at the local stores. But when that ran out, I couldn't sleep. There was about 3 days when I had no sleep. I was literally awake for 3 days because no matter what I tried, I couldn't sleep. So yeah, I had sleep problems. So I got melatonin, I've got GABA, I've got magnesium. I've got my sleep stack kind of dialed in for my supplements.
Here at NIKKI, we really love our customers, and to show our appreciation, we're giving away a device every single podcast episode. So make sure you go check out the show notes on how to enter. Stay tuned.
But as far as the NIKKI, during the day, I run Energy Boost, unless I have reason to run like pain or something like that. But Energy Boost during the day, and then after I'm done work, switch it over to stress and anxiety, and that just chills me right out. And that helps me ease into a bedtime routine and a restful sleep very, very well. And then first thing in the morning, back on Energy Boost.
That's incredible. I love it. That's the one thing we hadn't got to yet. But the one thing that makes our device different compared to other devices, that you can actually turn the EMF part of it off. And so
yes,
like if we're downloading a new frequency bundle or package, that's the only time you need to turn it on. And then after that, you can turn it off. And so it's never emitting some of those more harmful EMFs,
that's right.
Is a beautiful thing, right? Because it'd be counterproductive. It kills me, so many of these people with these Apple Watches on and some of these other things that are constantly, because it's like, it's a little bit kind of common sense, right? If we know we're electromagnetic beings, right, we can't have something strapped to us all the time that is going to be disrupting our cellular communication without repercussions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I can't even stand having my phone in the same room as me when I'm sleeping. I couldn't imagine having something with, emissions like literally strapped to my body.
Totally crazy. Well, this has been a really awesome diving deep into EMFs. Is there any like last little final words that you think our people need to know about when it comes to EMFs before we wrap up?
If you are sensitive to EMFs, or even if you don't think you are, try removing them from your immediate vicinity when you're sleeping. See how you feel. Put your phone in the other room, put it on airplane mode, take all the tech, all the chargers out of your room. If your bed is right next to a power socket in the wall, try moving it, see how it feels. Just experiment. You might find it a really big difference.
Absolutely. That's great advice. I'm gonna have to go one step further and get me a little device to test for some dirty electricity in my room, because I was finding out that there were certain walls that would just stay hot even
Yeah.
though the switch was off. So, and I had to move my bed, to a different wall that wasn't dirty. So that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely something to be aware of. And so if this is your guys' like entry point into why EMFs are bad, I highly suggest you continue to dig deeper. There's a lot of amazing information out there. One of my favorite books, was it called The Electric Rainbow? Is that the book? Dives in deeper into the world of EMFs and how it's progressed and everything that it does on the body. Like, it's been a fascinating reference.
I think my camera's flipping. It's Cross Currents. Yeah.
Okay.
Robert Becker. This is an older book, but that was one of my earliest introductions to the field. And so, I mean, like, the idea that EMFs could be harmful, that's not like a one-off theory or whatever. This goes back decades, and the research is proving it out in many, many cases. So.
Oh, it's even sad because people don't even realize that even in their phones, there's warnings, right? Of like the radiation and the EMFs and stuff like that, like in their own phones. But it's not readily right there in front of our faces for us, easy to find. But if we were to dig, like, there's warnings on a lot of this stuff out there. And that's also the thing that kills me is when I see people with like the Bluetooth headsets in, or the phone directly up to their head.
Oh,
like,
no.
oh,
I could do the headset, but I can't do the phone now.
Yeah.
I still use a wired headset. I'm old school, so
I am as well. My computer's wired, my headsets are wired. Like, I'm the only one at the gym that still everyone's got the AirPods, and I'm the one like getting hung up on my wire. But that's okay. My brain is still going to work in the next 10 years, so that's great.
That's great.
Right. Awesome. Steve, thank you so much for having you on today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody else, make sure to go check out. We are NIKKI.com/podcast, and you'll want to use BioBeats for a 10% off if you want to dig deeper into finding out how you can get better sleep or relief from pain or support around stress and anxiety, or the travel feature, which we actually didn't talk about, which is what is our travel feature and how does that work when it comes to EMFs?
I've never had opportunity to use that because since the pandemic, I haven't gone anywhere. But I can say that being, for example, on an airplane, you get exposed to quite a bit there. So that could be very beneficial there. And you mentioned staying in hotels or Airbnbs where you might have exposure to Wi-Fi routers, and maybe there's like an AC unit like with a compressor next to the bed or something like that. There's all sorts of EMFs you could be exposed to, as well as viruses and bacteria and mold, and who knows what else they might encounter. So there's quite a few different programs, like the travel program, that would help protect against quite a bit of that. I just haven't had a chance to use it myself.
I gotcha. Makes sense. So yeah, so sorry, I'm backtrack again. So yeah, make sure you go to wearenikki.com/podcast, use BioBeats for that 10% off your next purchase, and make sure to like, subscribe, and share, because if this is the first time you're kind of hearing about this information, how many other people out there also need to hear this information? And that's the only way it gets done, is by you helping us spread the word. So make sure to do that and stay tuned. Have a healthy day.
A better life, guaranteed. If NIKKI doesn't improve your wellness and sense of well-being in 30 days, send it back for a full refund. Free shipping, free platinum set of frequencies for life, 30-day money-back guarantee. NIKKI, Be better, do better. We are NIKKI.com.